Hello, my name is Vachaspati Bhimali. Professionally speaking, I am an Ielts and PT instructor. I have been teaching this preparation course for the last 3 decades. So, dear Ielts test takers, today I am going to provide you 10 wonderful tips, especially for Ielts speaking part 1, part 2, and part 3. I hope if you try to understand what I am gonna say. If you follow my instructions, I am damn sure you will be able to get even band 9 in IELTS speaking 1. So without further delay, at first I would like to give you 10 wonderful tips in order to get band 9 in IELTS speaking module. So number 1 tip is don't memorize answer. Okay, don't memorize answers, especially in part 1. Memorize language doesn't give the examiner an accurate measure of your English language skills. The examiner will be able to tell you if you have memorized your answers, and they may influence your final band score. What I mean here, if you give memorized answers to your examiner will surely notice that you are giving them memorized answer. What I mean here, dear IELTS test takers, don't give the memorized answers, give answers in your own language. Okay? So number 1 tip is don't memorize the answers, give your answers using your own creativity, using your imaginations, using your own logic. Okay, next tip is number 2 is don't use big and unfamiliar words. What I am saying, don't use big and unfamiliar words. What I have seen, many IELTS test takers, they use very complicated words, they use very unfamiliar words which are not used in day-to-day conversational English in order to impress the examiner. And that you shouldn't do. What I mean here, you may want to impress the examiner with big words and complex words in your IELTS speaking test, but to be said, avoid using words you are not familiar with. What I mean here, if you are not pretty sure about the meaning of the word that you are going to use, please don't use. Use the existing vocabulary you already have in your mind. Use the active vocabulary. Don't use passive vocabulary. What I mean here, active vocabulary means the words which you have been using for many years. That is active vocabulary. Passive vocabulary means the vocabulary that you use once in a while. If you are not pretty sure about the meaning of the exact word, you don't have to use in IELTS speaking model. Okay. There is a higher chance of making mistakes by either mispronouncing the words or using them in the wrong context. Mistakes can affect your final band score. What I mean here, use a range of vocabulary that you know which is relevant to the topic being discussed. Look at the topics in tip number 10, making vocabulary list or mind maps to help you learn more words and phrases connected to these topic areas. What I mean here, if you want to use specific vocabulary in IELTS speaking part 1, part 2 and part 3. For example, in IELTS speaking part 1, if the examiner has given you this topic, speak about the person who has impressed you a lot. So what I mean here, in order to appreciate someone's personality in English, you can use certain adjectives such as eminent personality, renowned personality, magnetic personality, charismatic personality, I mean, you have to collect the words related to personality. In IELTS speaking part 2, if the examiner has given you a topic, speak about the place where you often love to visit. Okay, and you need to collect certain words which are used to appreciate the beauty of any city, such as picturesque, stunning, gorgeous, exotic, terrific. For example, Pokhara is a picturesque city, Mustang is a stunning city, Ilam is a vibrant city. Okay, so you need to collect a list of vocabulary to speak on a particular task that you have to do. Okay, now dear IELTS students, now I am going to provide you number third tips. That is, use a range of grammatical structure. You have to use a range of grammatical structure. When IELTS examiner assess your IELTS speaking skills, I mean your English speaking skills, sorry I said IELTS speaking skills, your English speaking skills, they mark you against the following assessment criteria. Number 1, fluency and coherence. What do you mean by fluency means? Here, fluency means ability to speak without excessive pause. You need to speak in moderate speed. That is called fluency. Fluency doesn't mean that you have to speak unnecessarily fast English. Fluency and coherence. What do you mean by coherence here? Coherence means connectivity of idea. How you are connecting the idea. You have to connect idea very logically. Number 2 is lexical resources. What do you mean by lexical resources here? Lexical resources means wide range of vocabulary. The more vocabulary you use in appropriate situations, the better your score will be in IELTS speaking part 1, part 2 and part 3 in overall IELTS speaking. Next, grammatical range and accuracy. What do you mean by this? You have to use tense properly, reported speech properly, conclude agreement of verb properly, relative clause properly, preposition properly, conjunctions, parts of speech, articles, tag questions, conditional sentence. You have to use all grammatical. You have to use all sentences grammatically correct. Next is called what? Pronunciation. And most of the IELTS students, they have asked me, sir, can I get good score if I speak English like Nepalese and Indian people? I said, why not? You don't have to speak accented English like British and American people do. If you are able to pronounce all the words correctly, you will get your desired score. So what I mean here, dear IELTS test takers, try and use a range of grammatical structures using complex and simple sentences to express what you want to say. Know your own errors and practice speaking French and English, or record yourselves to see if you can spot errors. If you hear an error, make sure to correct yourself. You are assessed on your ability to use different grammatical structures accurately. So it's important to practice speaking about the past, present and future using correct tense. Especially in IELTS speaking part 1, part 2 and part 3, most of the answers are given either in simple present tense or past tense or present perfect tense. What I mean here, you have to know all the uses of simple present tense, past tense and future tense. Even though you have to know the uses of other tenses also. So what I mean here, the use of past tense, present tense and future tense is most important, especially for IELTS speaking part 1, part 2 and part 3. Okay. Dear IELTS students, now I am going to tell you another tip number 4. Okay, that is, don't worry about your accent. Don't worry about your accent. Here, accent means ACCE. Accent means the way of speaking any language. I mean, you don't have to speak English like British and Canadian and American people in order to get band 9 score in IELTS. Okay, you should pronounce the each word correctly. Pronunciation matters, accent doesn't matter. So let me make you understand again this. With a face-to-face speaking test, the IELTS examiner understands the wide range of accents, so you will be able to understand what you say. So they will be able to understand what you say. Okay? If you can communicate well, then there is nothing to worry about. But do be aware of that you have difficulty with, and make sure to use stress and intonation. You have to learn what the stress is. You have to learn what the intonation is, what the stress and intonations are. In grammar, you can turn the chapter name stress. In English grammar book, you can turn the chapter name intonations. So you have to take care about stress and intonations. Okay, let me make you understand again. You have to understand, you have to know a few rules of stress and intonations. As English is a stress time language. Practice with friends and they will tell you if they can't understand what you are saying. Okay, I mean, you need to find out the friend who knows better English than you do. Speak English with your friend who knows much more better English than you do, and the friend who knows better English than you do, and he will help you to find out your error. So in IELTS exam, you don't have to worry about accent. You have to take care of pronunciations. You have to pronounce each word very, very correctly. Okay, students? Hope you are getting me. Okay, dear students, now I am going to provide you another tip, that is pause to think. Okay? There is no harm in taking a brief pause to think about what you say. We all do it to process questions. We all do it to process questions. You can use phrases to give you time to think during the IELTS speaking test. Phrases such as, that's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. Next, I have never thought about that. I have never thought about that, but next, let me see. Next, that's the good point. Next, that's the difficult questions, but I will try and answer my best. Again, that's the difficult questions, but I will try and answer it. Next, well, some people say that is the case, however, I think. Next, let me think about that for a minute. So, dear students, let me make you understand. In IELTS, when you are taking IELTS exam, if the examiner has asked you some questions, okay, where you cannot give answers promptly, very quickly, at that time you can take a pause. You can borrow your time. Okay, you can take a brief pause in order to extend your answers logically, such as, well, I have never ever thought you would ask me these questions, but I will try my best to give you answers as nicely as possible. Let me think. Just let me think. Wait for a while. That's an interesting question. Let me think about that. That's the good questions. It's really a tricky questions, but I will try my best. I mean, dear IELTS test takers, it is good to take a pause in IELTS speaking module, in IELTS speaking exam. it doesn't create negative impressions to the examiner. Dear IELTS students, now I am going to provide you 6 number tips. That is, avoid using fillers. Speak confidently and avoid using filler words. We generally use fillers when we don't know what to say. However, this shows the examiner that you can access the appropriate language or ideas. It's important to avoid them and to use the phrases I'm going to say after a couple of seconds. For example, avoid the following fillers like, you know, well, yeah. Again, let me tell you, most of the accomplished IELTS instructors, they often give advice to the IELTS students by telling that you should avoid using fillers. What I have experienced in my life, you don't have to use it excessively. If you use it sometimes, okay, 1 time, 2 times is okay. But you don't have to use fillers excessively, I mean too much. Number 7. Tips number 7. Extend your answers. You have to elaborate your answers. You don't have to give 1 word and 2 word answers. For example, what do? Bank manager. Don't give 1 word and 2 word answers. You have to extend your answers. For example, what do? Well, professionally speaking, I work in a bank and I have been working in Siddhartha Bank, which is located at Baneshwar in Kathmandu. I have been giving my service as a manager to that reputed bank. And I have been working there for the last 2 or 3 years. You have to extend your answers a little bit. What I mean here, tips number 7, extend your answers. Now, let me make you understand again. Try and answer the examiner questions in full. Extend your answers and don't wait for the examiners to prompt you with the questions. When your answers are short, this shows the examiner that you cannot talk in detail about the topic. If the examiner says why, they are prompting you to give reasons for your answers and to extend more fully. So what I mean here, you always have to give extended answers. You don't have to give short answers. Okay? For example, where are you from? Don't say I'm from New York. Well, I belong to New York, which is one of the bustling city. It is in America, and I have been living there for a number of years. You have to use wide range of vocabulary and you have to give extended answers. Hope you are getting me. Okay, I am going to provide you another tips. Smiling helps pronunciation. What does it mean? Smiling can help calm your nerves, which in turn helps your pronunciation. Make sure to enunciate clearly, opening your mouth wide enough so that the sounds come out clearly. When we smile, our mouth is bigger and the tone of our voice is more friendly. Using clear enunciation and tone will show the examiner that you can use a range of pronunciation features. Now, tip number 9, don't speak in a monotone. What does it mean? Sometimes when we speak, we produce a flat sound, a monotone, with little variation. This makes it more difficult to express what you say and make it more difficult for the listener to identify what parts of your message are important. Putting emphasis on certain words and pausing at sections in your speech can make your conversation with the IELTS examiner more engaging. Are you getting me? When we emphasize certain words, it makes it easier to compare and contrast ideas by stressing keywords. It also increases the flow of conversation. So remember, don't speak in a monotone. Are you getting me? Hopefully you are. Okay, dear students, now I am going to provide you the last tip in this YouTube video. Number 10th tip is practice common IELTS topics. Part 2 of IELTS speaking test requires you to speak on a given topic for about 2 minutes. Practice common IELTS topics with friends, family or colleagues to improve and to learn vocabulary associated with each topic. Common topics you can practice for IELTS speaking test are given below, and I am going to say. You can get questions from tourism and travel. Like, do you think tourism is necessary for our country? Like education. Do you think co-education is important? Do you think co-education has demerits only? You can get questions from transport, environment, family life. Like family life, what kind of family do you like? Nuclear family or joint family? Why? And sports and creations. For example, do you think playing sport is necessary to keep ourselves healthy and hearty? Fit and fine? Give reasons. And crime and punishment. And you can get questions from the internet. Do you think internet is born? Do you think internet is cause? If it is both, then explain. Okay, you will get such topics in IELTS speaking part 2. You have to prepare, especially IELTS speaking part 2 and part 3, very intensively and extensively. Okay, hope you are getting me. So, dear students, at last, what I would like to request you humbly, what I would like to tell in a polite tone, if you find this video extremely helpful, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. And write comment in the comment box. Thank you very much.